Any idea why this is called 20th century? Because it has recycling? I don't know.
Because so it's really hard to tell with the art and the card tiles, but it starts from clearly the beginning of the 20th century of small little hamlets that make a little bit of money and a little bit of research.
Does it?
Yeah, look at the art. And then they get a little bit more advanced as they go on.
I never noticed that. Okay, that's a fair point. Okay, all right.
The city art does advance, yes.
Yeah, and that's why they get more science.
What's your newest city?
But this is a fancy hospital. I got that one in the first.
Yeah,
they made hospitals in the 1900s.
But with helipads though.
Yes. Yeah. All right, Chip. Move on. Move on. All right. Again, the artwork needs some work. All right,
it's fine.
It's also the trains show that. And the Citizen, this is the one I got in the first round. That's the one Shrig got in the last round.
So they get more modern.
They get more modern.
They invented hard hats.
Yes, they did. They did have hard hats.
They did invent hard hats.
As opposed to newsboy
That's
hats.
right.
All right. Thoughts on the game? I love this. I mean, I really do. I think the auctions and the push-pull mechanism of do I spend my money now? Do I hold it? Am I going to make enough? Is it worth it? Do I go... do I die on this hill for this tile? And then on top of that, the mitigating the catastrophe. It hits a spot for me that I just really look. Is it a highly heavy game? No, but I like my auctions, and this hits in a lot of different ways. And the timing on when to drop out. I like that everything is player driven in that regard. You know what the scoring tiles are, or what you need to focus on for scoring, and then it's a matter of prioritizing and who does it best. I like this game a lot.
Yeah.
So that's me though.
I could do without the catastrophe track, or at least the way I don't. There's some cleverness to the auction. Itself for the science track, but someone said this in the comments earlier in the chat. I don't like bidding to lose
or to not lose.
Not lose,
right?
Yeah.
It's all about mitigation,
right?
So the funny thing to me on that note is there is a game by Mercury Games. I can't remember the name of it, to where you spend most of the game in negative points. And if you finish the game in positive points, you feel good about it. But a lot of people don't like the way that feels. Whereas functionally, it's the exact same thing as scoring positive. It's just, it's a psychological thing that some people really bounce hard off of. I'm not saying you're wrong. No. I'm just saying it's an interesting fundamental thing that affects some people more than others.
They changed the arc Nova scoring so that you don't end up negative anymore, or potentially negative. Which, I agree. I don't find whatever. But that's different from this, right? This is specifically, it's a similar feel, but it's different.
I mean, you're still mitigating
because conceptually
negative points.
Conceptually, it's all about the difference between you and the other players on a score track. Whereas this is
capitals. That's it.
This is avoiding bad stuff by paying a resource that you desperately need in other places. Maybe.
Yeah. And I'm not saying you're wrong for not liking that. I perfectly viable.
I also find that a little bit. I'm not a huge fan of it. It doesn't bother me immensely, but it just doesn't. I wish it was something else to do that we could do with the science instead of that. But that's all right.
Well, I mean, you have to spend it for
a little bit, but not.
You spend it for later on in the game. I wanted to drop out earlier.
Oh, sure.
I was really thinking about trying to win the first auction and drop, but that 5, I was like, okay, that's prohibitive.
Yeah. No, and I don't. That is definitely something you spend on, but that's not the core of what you spend science on, right? The core is that auction, right? And I kind of wish it was something else. And
Yeah, I mean, so I think the auctions are what?
Scooch.
Oh, I see.
That's all. Right. Get cozy.
Cameras.
I could have moved it. Whatever. Move on.
So I think the auctions are interesting. I do think, now that we've played it at 4 and 5, I think it's pretty substantially better at 5.
Oh, yes.
I agree. But why?
I think it's just the competition is more interesting, right? Like this,
It's more dynamic.
This competition is more interesting. This competition is more interesting, right? Like people are.
And I would argue so is this, just because of the
It's
timing of when
harder
to drop out.
because of how much competition there is to not be really jagged in your board, right? Like I think what we saw last time is that like one person was really good at coins, one person was really good at money, one person was really good at points, but nobody was good at everything. I think it's easier to be kind of better at more stuff in a lower player count game. So I liked it better at 5. I wish the stuff around the auctions was more interesting. I guess is where I land.
That's fair.
The auctions are good. The other stuff.
This is my core issue with the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
I find there's there's not enough differentiation in the tiles that get put up for auction to my liking, right? There are good tiles that come out that you're bidding on there, then there are lesser tiles, but nothing like there's nothing junk, but there's not tiles
Incremental, right?
But it's not like that. It's not like, oh, this tile's good for Edward and this tile's good for Ken. It's that these tiles are generally good for everyone,
Right.
so there's just no reason to not just bid on the tiles that are good, and those are the ones that are going to get fought over more. And the ones that are left, maybe someone gets for cheap. I wish there was more reason to to bid on. I wish there was more ways to differentiate those tiles.
Like if there was some kind of engine building.
I don't know
more so than what
I
there
don't know. It'd
is.
be like you think about like Ra Medici, right? Like each person's tableau develops in a way that makes that feeds into the auction in a more meaningful way, right? Whereas this, I don't get that out of it.
It's smaller differences. I'll grant you that, but I do think there are meaningful differences. But I also agree. I wish it was more differentiation than there is. Yeah,
I want an incentive that really makes us value these tiles differently, and I don't get enough of it. There's maybe a little bit, but not enough.
Yeah. It's a really well thought out auction. The fact that like this cost goes up round to round, that these costs go up round to round, that these get more substantial round to round, right? Like I think the stakes raise in an appropriate way that makes the auction stay interesting. It's just the other stuff is not. Like these could be a little more interesting, these could be a little more interesting, these could be a little more interesting.
yeah. These are a little. Yeah, like I feel like there's room here for some more interesting scoring mechanism and something to vary that. Again, it's a 14-year-old game in that regard, right?
Yeah,
It does show its age
Yeah.
in that regard. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
But again, my thinking on this is the core mechanism here, or the core of the game, is really strong. I think that you look at what Roxley did with Metropolis, whether you like it or not, how they changed what was a very basic game akin to this, and then made it into more, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
I think this game would benefit from that, because I think the core that this game does really well. Now, the question is are there other games that do this better now? I don't know. Or that's a core auction game like this. But, I mean, it effectively is 2 auctions with a really interesting dropout mechanism, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what I do enjoy it is the balance of spending money now, saving it maybe for next turn, figuring out how to build your income up so that you can go deep on an auction and then deciding to go deep on that tile
Yeah.
Right.
or
Yep.
not. Maybe getting a
Yep,
couple,
yep.
three tiles. I don't know if anybody bought 3 tiles in around this.
I thought about it. I think you did in the variant. No, you got 2, was it, at the
Yep.
end? Okay.
And so I think that is where I think that's where this game is really good for me. I just wish the other stuff we're talking about came through, and that's where development, if this was to get get a little bit more attention, I could see some changes that makes that more interesting.
Maybe another phase where you can spend your money and your science on perks or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. So ultimately, where do y'all fall on this? Like, where does it rank for you as far as other Suchi games?
It's so different.
It is. It's apples and giraffes.
So-
It's super simple compared to his more recent games.
Like for me, it's below most of his other games, but I like most of his other games more. Like, so that's not saying that this is a bad game. I think I would want to compare this to other auction games that are of this weight, rather than
Right.
compare to other Sushi games, because compared to I
Okay,
love
that's fair.
Underwater Cities.
Right.
I love Evacuation. So how am I going to compare a game which I see fundamental flaws in to that, right?
Okay. Fair. So this is more akin to like No Thanks or Medici, but again in Raw. I mean, but the
Yeah.
problem with that is those are so it's
How do you compare against Medici?
yeah.
I don't know. I'm terrible at coming up with other
Sure.
comparisons on the spot, but
Yeah.
you mentioned Metropolis, and that's a reasonable example, right? And that has a very unique bidding system, which I
It
think
does.
which I think is where
Yeah.
the game is.
Yeah.
All the surrounding stuff is less interesting. in that
Yes,
one.
agree. Again, kind of akin to this.
Yeah.
In that regard, yeah.
So,
But
that's
I
why-
would say, like, with that game, and even with Skyrise, the new edition, you spend less time with the uninteresting stuff, right? Like, this game, you actually have to spend a fair amount of time with the stuff that I'm less excited about. Thinking about stuff like, which direction should this tile go on my board? I actually don't care about that much, but it is essential to think about it carefully if you're going to win.
I will also say that part of the arc of this game that does feel bad is when you look back at your the first tiles you spent $6 on, and you think, why did I spend that much money?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So
But-
yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of Metropolis, and I like Skyrise, so I would choose those more. But I think that, I mean, there's room for this game. They're not similar enough that like that one precludes this one. So
See, I guess I just fall higher on this than y'all do, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's-
But I think I've also, if you ask my opinion on any Sushi game, it's going to just be he's just one of those guys that doesn't mesh well with my style, I think.
That's fair, also.
yeah, I would tend to agree. Although I do love Evacuation.
It is really good.
Yeah.
I don't think it
But the ironic thing on that note is I've played it enough now to where I don't feel the need to want to play it again anytime soon. So, but yeah, no, I this is top 3 Suchi for me.
Wow.
It really is. It hits. I really dig auction games.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing: if we have 6 and we want to play an auction game,
Perfect.
it's gonna. Well, no, it's gonna be Medici.
Medici.
Even though I am terrible at it. If we have 5, might be Raw, might be this.
Yeah.
So I really like this, and I do agree with you. 5 is the best player count
Yeah.
for this. I agree. So wholeheartedly.
It is pretty zippy. That's nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What time is it?
I mean, 2 hours with full
We
teach
finished by
on
about
the round
9,
table.
by about 9
Yeah, so hour and a half, hour 45 with the
on
teach.
stream.
That's
That's
pretty.
pretty
That's
fast.
pretty quick. So
Yeah.
it's about an hour, maybe 75 minutes, even
Yeah.
if 5 players.
Yeah.
So it's hard to beat that. But anyway,
Yeah.
so do y'all want to play it again? Like, would you ask for this? Would you actively be like, "Hey, let's play this"? I assume the answer is no for all of you, and the answer is yes for me. But
Like tomorrow? No.
later this summer,
Would play. it's hard to know whether I'm gonna like be jonesing for it, but my instinct is probably not.
Okay.
But would play? Sure, I would play it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I don't. It doesn't rise to that level of me wanting to actively have try dig into it more. I think I've seen what I need to see out of it.
Yeah, there is no emergent gameplay here. The tiles get marginally stronger.
Yeah.
The end. So all fair points.
I think in a couple months from now during game day, if we're at 5 people and you literally have it in your hand, I'll play it.
Yeah.
Gaming with faint praise. All right.
So if it's 5-player and if the choices are this or a Keyflower, I'll play this.
Really?
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's an auction game to compare it to.
There's an auction game. I will say
That's a game I dislike.
I have some of the same
Wow.
problems with Keyflower I have with this, and that like the stuff that's not the auction is less exciting than I would like it to be.
Agreed.
But the auction is so good in that game.
Keyflower's auction is one of the better auctions.
Yeah.
Enough for me.
And that's a wrap.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right. Hey, thanks everybody for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you're a patron, we'll be back Friday with Pax Porfiriana. If you're not a patron, we won't be back this week. So that's that. Yeah, like, subscribe, thumbs, all that fun stuff. Really does help the channel. Subscribe. Really, 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 please. I appreciate it. And patreon.com/HHQ. I'm Edward.
Ken?
Charade, with apologies to Graham, For Sale is a better light auction game
Then no thanks.
than No Thanks. I love
Okay.
No Thanks, but For Sale is better.
I agree with Shay. And Greg.
I like them both. Y'all have a good night.
Yeah.
Take care. Thank you for watching the video, y'all. Go check out some more of them if you were so inclined. But while you're here, take a moment, subscribe. It really, really, really helps the channel. I appreciate it, y'all. Thank you.